All right. We're going to skip, we're going to do things a little different today. Like I said, all of the candidates and candidate committees will be allowed to say a greeting at the end. Also, any comments or reminders and all that sort of stuff, we're going to push off to the end. We're going to get right into our speakers today. I know we're very excited to hear from them. And we have a Republican in the room that's going to introduce the governor for me, because there's somebody in this room who has been there from the very beginning of the Republican Party. Someone who we almost get spoiled seeing Reba Jennings as often as we do, because we forget how much you've accomplished for this party and how much you've been a part of the growth and strength of the Republican Party in Georgia. So Reba, would you introduce the governor for us?
I will be happy to. I think I need this. I'm pretty loud and I'm over the dirt.
Amen.
But I appreciate everybody that's here, and I know you made this effort to come out and listen to our governor. I have a brief introduction because most of you know him. He served us as our congressman and served us well, and was always there for us, representing us and taking care of us. Now he is our governor, and I'm so proud of the job he's doing. We're #1 in business in the United States of America, Georgia. God bless Georgia. His wonderful wife, Sandra, whom I love, she knows the history of every piece of furniture in that governor's meeting. You gotta take that tour sometime. But Nathan has, my latest figures were 200,000 jobs that he has brought to our state. And I'm going to let him talk because he does a much better job of it.
Well, thank you, Reba. You've been a friend for a long time, and I appreciate your being here to introduce me this morning. Brad, thank you for allowing me to come and be with you, and thanks to all of you for getting up on a very cold morning to be here. Now, I want to tell you that, first of all, thank you for sending the great representatives and senators to the state capitol to work as a part of our team. They do a great job representing your interests. They do a great job representing the Republican Party's point of view. And I think, in the general scheme of things, they do a great job representing the entire people of the state of Georgia. And that's what all of us are really asked to do. Now, for the fact that I see several people from other Republican organizations in the state who are great organizations, I will simply say, Brad, you have one of the best Republican parties. Ron Johnson would hold me accountable because I said the same thing about him last week, so I have to be careful. This has been a busy week, as you know if you follow the news. We had the General Assembly came into session on Monday. I had a busy day on Wednesday. I had the Eggs and Issues breakfast speech that morning. I had the State of the State address at 11 o'clock that day. And then I immediately after lunch at 1 o'clock had an address to the Joint Appropriations Committee of the House and the Senate as they began the process of looking at our state budget. And then I thought I was through and I forgot I had a state bankers meeting that I had to speak to later that afternoon. So I've just about said everything this week that needs to be said. We had a saying in Washington that, you know, when everybody wanted to keep saying the same thing over and over and over again, and somebody was complaining about it, they said, yes, it's true. everybody has said everything that needs to be said, but just everybody hasn't said it yet. So we sometimes see that, as you know, in political gatherings. Let me just hit a few of the highlights, because I think we are in a position in Georgia that we have achieved some significance. Certainly, the designation of being the best state in the nation in which to do business is a great distinction. It is one that a lot of people have worked very hard to help achieve, and it's one that we're going to have to continue to work very hard to maintain, because it is a very competitive environment for keeping and attracting business in this country. Everybody is hungry for new jobs, and to be able to say that we are there at the top of the pack is indeed a great honor, but also a great responsibility to be able to maintain that. And there are many ingredients that make it possible for us to do that. As you know, we still live in an economy that is not where it was prior to the Great Recession setting in. We saw a dip in revenue of about 19% over the term of that Great Recession. We are beginning to come back up. We have had, during the quarters that I had served as governor, we have had continuous quarter-over-quarter growth as compared with the previous year, which is certainly good news and a sign that we are indeed recovering. But we can't get careless. We can't get spend happy. That's what gets you in trouble, is when you think that, oh yes, we don't have to worry about where we spend our money now because we've got more of it. That's when you get yourself in trouble. And that's where I think the distinction between good conservative leadership distinguishes itself, as opposed to leadership that simply tries to cater to everybody's particular little issue, which costs money. And that's what we have tried to do. Now, we haven't made everybody happy in that process. A lot of people thought that their budgets should not be affected by a downturned economy. Well, that's just not realistic. It is not feasible. It is not possible, because we have many functions the state is required to perform, and we try to do them in the best place and the best way we can. To allocate the resources that have been scarce to the most important areas. Now this year, it is true that I put more money into K through 12 education than we've seen come in an increase in the last 7 years. Now, if I had wanted to play politics with it, you know what I would have said we were going to spend that money for? Just to give teachers pay raises. And the media was setting that up, if you followed the news. The governor's going to give these pay raises to teachers. You know what the last line they wanted to say after that, if I had done that? And it was purely political. You see, they've got traps that they lay for you, and they want you to step in them because they encourage that in their publications, hoping that you will fall for the bait. Well, it is important to raise our teachers' salaries when we have the opportunity to do so. But for those of you who are involved in education, and I know Ann and others who are here know very, very clearly that if you really do believe that government and its functions are best when they're closest to the people, then we should trust our local boards of education. We should trust our local school superintendents to spend that money in the most appropriate place. Now, there's at least one school system in this state that throughout all of this has never had to furlough any teachers. That's remarkable, because this has been a tough economy for education as well. So, when we put the money in, we are saying to the local boards and the local school districts to whom the money is going to be distributed, and I'm assuming that the General Assembly is hopefully going to follow my recommendation in that regard. I have every reason to believe they will. We've talked with the leadership of the House and the Senate as we prepared this budget, so I expect them to do that. But you're going to see it manifest itself in different ways in different school districts across the state. Some will have to use it to simply shore up what their basic responsibilities are. Some will be able to eliminate completely, and I am hopeful that the majority of our school districts will be able to eliminate completely teacher furloughs and go back to 180 school days for our children. I've even had one school superintendent who said that, you know, with this amount of money, I can extend the school year from 180 days to 190 days. He also had a good suggestion for me too. He said, you know, we ought to stop giving end of course tests in April. School's not over with in April. But once that test is given, it pretty much in the signal in the minds of a lot of folks that school is over. He said we ought to be able to teach right up until the very end. I know there's some mechanics associated with compiling test scores and all of that, but there's a lot of truth to that. We need to make sure that every day is a day of education for our children, and we need teachers there as much as we possibly can. So I am hopeful that we will virtually see furlough days for teachers eliminated. Now what that does is that gives them a pay raise, folks. It gives them a pay raise greater than some little small percentage across the board of a pay raise, because 1 day or 2 days or 8 days that are lost are deducted from their salary. So if they don't have to have furlough days, then actually they will have received a raise over those years in which they had to take furlough. So we're hopeful that the money will be used appropriately. I think that it will be. We also have, over the last year since I have become the governor, I said, you know, the first thing we ought to do is make sure that the money we're spending, even for education, is aimed at doing the most fundamental thing that government can do to improve its society. And in my opinion, that is to create jobs for our citizens. And I said this over and over. I said it in the State of the State, but I'll say it again because it is the foundation on which I operate. If a person has a good job, they can provide for themselves and their family. They can be charitable in their community, and they will have less need for asking government to do things for them. Now think about it. That's where all of this pressure and push that we are receiving even now to do things on the social side of the agenda. If people had good jobs, they wouldn't be asking for that. Expand Medicaid, for example. You know what the basic secret of the recipe prior to the Affordable Care Act was for getting people insured in this country? It was to give their employers a tax deduction for the cost of insuring their employees. It was a huge success. It was the very basis on which well over half, in fact I think it's somewhere close to 3/4 of the people in this country that have health insurance were getting it through their employment. Well, if you want to get people insured, get them employed. That's where they're going to be able to get their health care, and they won't be asking the taxpayer to dip into their pockets in tough times, which we are still in, and do that for them. So that's why the creation of jobs, in my mind, is so significant. And it's 217,000 by the count of the Labor Department since I became governor, that new jobs that have been created. So everything that we have tried to do is to say, let's focus on that goal. Now, education has been a great part of the reason that we have been able to attract jobs. We do have the top-ranked workforce in the country, but we've got to keep it that way. And it takes that pipeline of educated people and trained and skilled people continuing to come through the systems that we have. And it starts at the beginning. It starts in our pre-K programs. We do have one of the best pre-K programs acknowledged by everybody, even the president, that we have one of the best pre-K programs in the country. As you know, it is a part of our lottery-funded HOPE program. And we have continued to try to upgrade it, and we will continue to do so. But we also have to acknowledge that we have a great technical college system. One of the real ingredients that has allowed us to attract some major businesses has been that there is a component of our technical college system that is referred to as the Quick Start program. It has been the most nationally and internationally recognized, successful part of job recruitment. Because what they do is that, let's say you have a company that's coming here from Germany, and they're going to establish a plant in Georgia. Well, they're going to be concerned that they have workers here who know how they do things in Germany. Quick Start will send some of their staff to the German facilities that they are already operating to find out how they do things. And then when they come back and they are employing Georgians to come to those jobs, they can make those new employees understand what is expected of them. It is a great success, and we've been able to not only attract, but to keep and to grow overseas companies, especially, who are concerned that the difference in culture, the difference in attitude, will be something that cannot be transcended. We have shown through the Quick Start program that we indeed can transcend that. But this year, just as we started last year, we said, let's start, if we want to get people in jobs, let's find out what jobs are out there now that we're not being able to fill. And it's remarkable. We identified 3 areas last year, and when we identified them, we said, if you will pursue training in these areas, we will pay 100% of your tuition cost to pursue a degree or a certificate in those areas. Now, that's putting your education dollars where the jobs are, and we think it will pay off. This year, I've suggested 4 additional areas, and those 4 areas are critical areas that some of you will recognize we have shortages in. The first one is welding. You talk to anybody whose business involves having to have skilled welders, and they will tell you they can't find them. In fact, JCB, which is an English company that is located in the Savannah area, they manufacture, I infringe on everybody's copyright and patent when I say these things, they make Bobcats. They're not Bobcat makers, they're JCB, but they make those Bobcat type machines. You know, that's become a generic thing, like Kleenex. And Sandra and I had the opportunity a year or so ago when we visited there. They also make those backhoes for the military that'll run 60 miles an hour. I jokingly say that, yes, if I was digging a trench in a war zone and somebody started shooting at me, yep, I'd like for that backhoe to go 60 miles an hour. Because my tractor won't come anywhere close to running that fast. But they are the ones who said, you know, we want to expand our line. And they did expand their line. But you know where they had to go to get the welders? They had to go to Florida. They had to go to Florida. Now that's a shame for a Georgia-based company not to be able to find enough trained people in Georgia to fill those jobs. Now, long-haul truck drivers was one of the 3 categories last year. And we have a vacancy of those. And quite honestly, if the movement of the port dredging and completion of that is on track, as I think it is going to be, then we're going to need even more long-haul truck drivers, because there are going to be a whole lot more trucks that are going to be delivering a whole lot more cargo and finished products and importing of raw materials back and forth through that port of Savannah. So this year, if we add those 4 additional areas, we'll say the same thing. If you will pursue degrees in these, and one of them is diesel mechanics. I know I've got some folks here in the room that will tell you how difficult it is to find a good diesel mechanic. And if you'll pursue those degree areas, then you will get 100% of your tuition cost paid through the HOPE grant program. We've also asked that the General Assembly create a Zell Miller HOPE grant. You know, we did that 2 years ago when we reformed the HOPE scholarship program. We had to disconnect the HOPE program from tuition because it was bankrupting our HOPE program. In fact, had we not made those changes, the prediction from all of the economists was we would have drained our reserves and it would have virtually been bankrupt last year. We made the changes, we've kept it solvent, and we're continuing to see success in those areas. But the Hope Miller Scholarship was one that said that if you had a 3.7 grade point average in high school and a 1200 or greater SAT score, then you would receive full tuition for going to one of our colleges or universities. I propose the same thing in the technical college system of students who go into that system. Now, they don't have to have a specific grade point average, you see, to go to our technical colleges in the first place. So this is a little bit of an approach after the fact. That if they will go to our technical college and maintain a 3.5 grade point average, then we will pay 100% of their tuition cost for pursuing the degrees that they are seeking, in addition to those that are the very specialized areas that we give preference to, where they will already get 100% of the cost of those. Well, those are some of the things that we're trying to do. But we also felt that in the college and university system, that it was appropriate to do the same thing. Because, you know, the state spends a lot of money, and certainly parents spend a lot of money sending children to school. Probably one of the most disappointing things in the world, if you're a parent, is to have spent and invested a lot of money in getting your child a college degree, only to find that there is no demand for that degree. I see some smiles in this room. I think there must be some examples of that right here. Now, I know, and I'm a graduate of Mercer University, which is a liberal arts college. And there are great advantages to liberal arts education. I have no doubt about that, and I don't diminish it at all. But I think it is important that we try as nearly as possible to be sure we're spending our money so that ultimately their education and training will lead to their employment. And I would like for their employment to be right here in Georgia. I'm tired of having some of our best and our brightest students, which, by the way, we have been able to retain in Georgia for their college and postgraduate educations, because we have kept the Hope Scholarship a merit-based, not a needs-based program. Because those top students can literally go to most any college or university in the country they want to, because those universities know they're good and they want them. It's to our advantage to keep them here. But I want to go to the next step, and that is to give them a job in our state so that once they do get the education, they don't have to leave us in order to find employment. So those are the kinds of things that we're working on. There is another area, and Brad, I'll conclude with this one. It is an initiative that some people say, well, just ought not touch that. And that's criminal justice reform. But you know, the truth of the matter is that if we want to keep ourselves safe, we ought not to have our prison system as a revolving door. And that's what it is. You tell me that an individual who goes into prison and spends 10 to 20 years in that environment doesn't come out more dangerous than when they went in, I will not believe you. They have been exposed to violence. They've been exposed to people who are violent. And if we don't have something that will change the direction of their lives, then we're going to see them be more dangerous when they came out than when they went in. 70% of the people who are in our prison systems right now do not have a high school diploma or a GED. Now, if they don't have that, the chances that they have some kind of marketable skills to make up for it are pretty slim. So, we started out by saying, first of all, how do we divert as many nonviolent offenders out of our prison system as we can? Because it cost us $18,000 for one bed for 1 year. And that's a lot of money to spend. Just think if we had that money we could spend on education, what a difference we could really make. So we said, okay, let's identify those that are nonviolent. And let's see if there's not a better way to deal with their problem and keep them from being reoffenders. And the answer that we came up with, and one that has worked very well, I might say, is what we call accountability courts. These are typically referred to as drug courts, DUI courts, mental health courts, and now increasingly veterans courts. And by the way, thanks to the VFW for allowing us all to be here today. Thanks for what your organization does. These are courts that are going to be focused in on the needs and the problems that people face in these arenas. Now, in almost every instance, there is some form of addiction associated with their criminal conduct. And if you do not deal with that addiction, then you're not going to have any success. They're going to go right back, do the very same thing. And the irony of it is, you can put a drug addict in prison for 10 to 20 years, and if you've never dealt with that problem of addiction, they can be all of that period of time presumably clean and come out and immediately go back to what they were addicted to in the first place. So, the alternative courts on the front end for adult offenders are designed to try to break that cycle of addiction early in their life cycle. Not let them get to the point that we have to lock them up for a long period of time. And it is successful. It is working. The best statistic I have to indicate that it is working is this. The Department of Corrections met with me about 8 months ago now. They said, Governor, you remember when you were campaigning in 2010, about every sheriff in the state was complaining about the fact that there were state prisoners that were still backed up in their local jail that were not being picked up and sent to the prison system? I said, yeah, I don't think there was a sheriff that I talked to that didn't have that problem. I said, get me some statistics on that. So they did. And the statistic is this. The beginning of 2011, there were over 3,000 state convicted prisoners who had never been picked up by the state and sent to the prison system. They were in local jails. It was costing us $23 million a year to pay local governments to keep state prisoners. In 2013, it was down to about $3 million. And I am told that this coming year, it will be much closer to zero. Saving $20 million in that short period of time is a remarkable thing to happen. And I think it is in large part due to the fact that we're not filling our state prisons up with non-violent offenders. We're reserving those beds for the ones who are violent, the ones who truly need to be locked up. And some of them don't ever need to be sent back to society because they will be dangerous no matter what we try to do. But for those others, if we can break their cycle of not being educated, of not having any marketable skills, then we can keep ourselves safer in the process. And it's going to be difficult. The first year, we dealt with those accountability courts for adult offenders. Last year, we dealt with juveniles on the same basic idea. You know, if you think $18,000 is a lot of money to spend on one person for a year, try $90,000 for a juvenile to keep them locked up for a year. There's so many other things you have to do for a juvenile offender when you lock them up, so much more costly. So we have tried the approach of setting aside money in the budget for a competitive grant program for local communities to set and establish community-based alternatives for these young people. Unfortunately, even they are sometimes the victims of addiction. So their addiction has to be dealt with while they're still juveniles, if that's in fact the basis of their problem. We think that's going to have the same kind of success that I've just talked about in the adult arena. But the third leg of the stool is what we call support, transition, and reentry. And that is trying to make sure that when an individual is released from our prison system, they have an even chance of not reoffending. And as I indicated, if we can just reduce our recidivism rate by 25%, it'll be something like 1,400 fewer crimes every year. It'll be like 1,100 fewer victims of crime every year. I think that's an achievable goal, but it's going to require some really hard work. The General Assembly is going to take up those recommendations from the Criminal Justice Reform Council that will be coming their way have just submitted their last report. And we're hopeful that we can put in place some of those programs that will begin to make a difference on that issue. Now that's a very quick overview of some of the big issues that are confronting us at the General Assembly this year. Yesterday, the House passed the rescheduling of our primaries, which was dictated by the actions of a federal judge who set federal primaries for May the 20th. And both the House and the Senate have now passed the bill that will reconcile those dates so that May the 20th will be the primary date for the state of Georgia for both federal as well as state elections. That's about 2 months earlier, if you see, than we have historically had it in that third week in July. Now, that means that you're going to be hit up for some contributions in a rather short order as soon as the General Assembly is adjourned. Because members of the General Assembly and statewide officers cannot raise campaign funds during the time the General Assembly is in session. You know, we'll do most anything to incentivize them to get out of town quickly. But nevertheless, we do anticipate that it will be a somewhat relatively brief session this year. And that will be one of the factors is the primary is going to be so much earlier. I thank you for your support in this county. I thank you for your support of good Republican incumbents as well as good Republican candidates. They need your help. They need your support. As you can tell from the picture of politics in Georgia at its highest level, the Democrats are looking to make a resurgence and reclaim control of Georgia's government. It started with Michelle Nunn being the hand-picked candidate to be their candidate for United States Senate. You know, and I'm sure that you would agree with this, it'd be nice if you didn't have any opposition in your primary. But I don't think that's the way the public thinks about things. It would have been nice if you could run for governor and not have an opponent in your primary. My announced opponent has cleared the way for himself. He convinced an African-American former state senator who had already announced that she was running for governor that really she didn't need to do that. She'd need to move out of the way, give him a clear shot at the nomination, and that she really needed to run for the lieutenant governor slot anyway. That's the way they're stacking the deck. They're counting on us eating our own. And we've been pretty good at that, just to tell y'all the truth. We've done a good job at it. We've lost a lot of elections all across this country because we'd rather fight with ourselves than focus on who the real opponent is. And that's those who would not only not subscribe to our thought processes, but who would absolutely reverse the things that we put in place. Now, I know that this is an arena in which I can be a little bit political. I cannot normally be political in most environments in which I speak, but this is not one of them. I would very much appreciate your support in this re-election effort that I am undertaking. I appreciate the fact that you have supported me and Sandra and have been so hospitable to us during these last 3 years. We're going to make this 4th year a year that people will celebrate, saying that Georgia has indeed turned a corner and we're on the right track, and it's not time to derail the engine at this point in our history. Thank you very much.
We have a U.S. senatorial race here in Georgia. Happens to be pretty important. And we have Eugene Yu, businessman, leader here in Georgia.
Thank you, Brett. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. First of all, let me say Happy New Year. I was here, well, last year, right?
And for Christmas.
And Christmas. 2014, this election is all about you. Yes, sir, right? This is all about you. Not you, you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eugene Yu. I'm running for U.S. Senate. First of all, let me explain about my personal. I guess a lot of people want to know who Eugene Yu is. I came to this country when I was a teenager with my parents in Augusta, Georgia. I started working in the local factory when I was in 10th grade high school at the midnight shift at the assembly line. I worked all night long, and next morning, go home, take a shower, eat breakfast, go to school. In the weekend, I worked at a local grocery store at the backboard or stopboard. Not only that, in the weekend, I was working as a volunteer fireman at the Richmond County. I was so busy, I didn't even ever get the time to get in trouble. After graduating from the high school, I became full-time firefighter in Richmond County, and still going to college in Augusta College. And later, I joined the U.S. Army as a military policeman. After honorary discharge, went back to Augusta. I became the local law enforcement as a deputy sheriff. I worked until 1984. Then I became the businessman at a local small business, as dealing with a lot of military equipment. Now, this is the very first time in my politics. People ask me, why are you running for U.S. Senate? You know, I jumped in the water. I did not jump in the river. I did not jump in the lake. Guess what? I jumped in the ocean. And the other thing is, in Georgia, it's so big. I mean, I know Texas is big, but since my campaign for the last 6 months, Georgia is so big. In the south, in the north, in the east, in the west. The reason I'm running for U.S. Senate is because one day I woke up, I look around, it seems like American dream is just slipping away. That American dream that I always pursue, that our children. I want my children, or their children, to have the same American dream that I have. And folks in the Washington, they are continuously spending our money, your money, our children's money. And they don't even feel any guilty of it. And you know that they just passed, what, another $1.1 trillion, billion dollar? I mean, we cannot spend more than what we get. There's another thing. It seems like we have too many people in the wagon, not enough of people in the pull of the wagon. We are continuing to put the people in the wagon. Guess what? The world about to come up. Let me say about a few other things. I'm sure all you guys watching the baseball game, right? If your pitcher get beat up by the other team, what do? You change the pitcher, right? You cannot send the same people over and over, expected to winning the game. We as a Republican, we need to stop doing that good old boy system. Amazing me that the people watching the TV and the reading newspaper complaining about our society or our nation, but yet in the election time, you will continue sending same people over and over. I want to bring a new solution, new ideas. Folks in the Washington, they completely forgot about the common sense. Once they get elected, they live up to 30,000 above the air and look down on us and look, everything looks fine. And they just don't understand what goes on and down the ground level. I want to fight for you. I want to stand up for you. I will fight for whatever best your interest. I will fight for whatever best interest to Georgia. I will fight for whatever best interest in America. We cannot continuously spend the money overseas. Look at me. I am immigrant. I want to tell you, we cannot spend the money overseas anymore. Those days are over. If you cannot pay your bill, you cannot continue chairs to the other. You got to take care of yourself first before you take care of others. I mean, that's a very common sense, right? I mean, I don't have to tell you. If you cannot help yourself, you cannot help me. You got to help yourself first. Then you can turn around and help somebody else. And there's a lot of different issues and on and on. As you know, this afternoon, all my opponents down the south are waiting for me. We have a big debate goes on. Debate, right? Yes. And everybody's waiting for me. I found out all my opponents down the south, they're ready for the debate. Well, here I am. Coming to Forsyth. I want to meet with you guys, meet with your folks. Vote for you, for you. Did you hear what I said? Vote for you, for you. Washington needs you turn. I mean it. Washington needs a U-turn. Otherwise, we're going down the cliff. There's a couple other issues that, if you allow me, do I have some time?
Absolutely.
Okay. As an immigrant, I want to talk about the immigrant, illegal immigrant. And the Democrat and the Republican, they're talking about trying to give amnesty for those 11 million illegal immigrants, amnesty. I want to tell you, I am completely against it. No, no, no. I tell you what, there will be directly insult a person like me and my family. This is the United States of America. They have to earn to get in the country, right? Legally, proper way. Right. If anybody come in and go, whatever they want, we become the Banana Republic. We are in the United States of America. Let me give you another common sense. I'm from Augusta, Georgia. I lived there for 42 years. Most of them, you know the Augusta National, right? Do you know why Augusta National is so precious? Because you can't even get in there. That's what makes Augusta National so to understand. This country, you have to earn it in proper way. Just like that the people always say, well, I mean, you're the immigrant. I mean, why can you understand those people? Well, I didn't ask for them to come. I didn't ask for them to come. And I want to go back to this is another very important, is when I get elected, I want to review every single penny we spend overseas. I mean it. As America, we've been supporting around the world for the last 100 years. But those days are over. Now we must take care of ourselves. Then we may have to look out for others. In the meantime, we must keep our country strong. We keep the military strong. Talking about the big government. That's another common sense I want to tell you is, we have a southern border, we got a northern border. Why they keep creating the big border patrol? We got a National Guard. Why can't we use National Guard? They're already trained there. They're already well equipped. You keep creating the more department. That's where you're gonna get a big government. We already have a National Guard. We can secure our border down the south and the north. However, please look at my website. Tonight, I'm going to put out my new 5 plan for the affordable health care, so-called Obama care, right? In my book, I'll give F. So please check my website. The reason I don't want to tell you that 5 plan, because I'm going down the south, I'm going to put out there. I'm going to let my opponent ready for that what that 5-point plan is. Please check my website, www.eugeneussenate.com. That's 5 health plan, 5-point plan. And God bless y'all. Amen. And God bless Georgia. And may God continuously bless our United States of America.